Hi everybody, it's Marcy and welcome to part 3 of my File Folder Folio tutorial series. We've gotten our outside, we've got our 2 file folders put together with a center spine. We've got the background papers on our outside panels. Today we're going to start working on some of our inside panels. And what I'm going to do to make this a little easier, you'll see I've marked each of my panels with top. At this point, when they look very similar, it's very easy to get them turned around and all of that. That won't last for long, but. So what I'm going to do, just to make things easier, is I'm going to mark. This is when everything is wide open to the inside. This is the farthest left. I'm going to mark it with a 1. This one with a 2. This one with a 3. And this one with a 4. So that way I can tell you, in case you can't see the entire spread, I can tell you what panel I'm working on. And today, I'm going to start with panel 2. And let me tell you very quickly why I'm doing this. After I get a few things done, I will want to go around and stitch around the outside of my entire folio. Doesn't have to be done. That is just my preference. So I'm trying to get those things that need to be done and in there before I can lay down the background papers here, which is the point at which I will be ready to stitch around the entire thing. I want to get those done first. So once each 4 of these panels have their background papers in, then I'll be ready to stitch around. Long way of saying that. Okay. So let's get started. Panel 2 today will be getting its background papers. And the papers that I loved that I was going to use for my outside panels, and then I miscut them so I didn't have enough left, I'm going to use one of those for the background panel here. I had 1 sheet left, so I'll be able to use it for the background panel here and the background panel here. So I've got that cut down, already cut down and inked, and it is 5 3/4 by 8 3/4. But it's not ready to go in yet. So let's move that out of the way for right now. What I'm going to start with, I'm using this was a hanging file folder, and I've just taken the hangers out, and it's ready now to be cut. So, and you could do the same thing with another file folder. You could make this same thing with scrapbook paper. I just like the color of these things, so I want to use it. And I've got it. Okay, so I'm going to cut this. I've got the fold of it against my cut line. I probably ought to use my big cutter for this. Sorry. I really do fumble around like this even when I don't have the camera on. Okay. So let's slide this under, and I am going to cut this to 8.5 inches long. 8.5. All right. Then I'm putting my folded edge this way because I don't want to cut it off. So that's going to be my measuring guide, and I'm going to cut this to I have two numbers written down. I'm still trying to decide for certain. I think I'm going to cut mine at I could go as far as 5 3/4, but I'm afraid I'd rather have a little extra room. So I'm going to cut mine at 5 5/8. All right. And this is going to become all right, let me put my scraps over here. Although I'm still going to want a scrap. Hang on. I'm going to cut one more at 8.5 by 2. All right, now I can put that away, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out my scoreboard and score that in half. And it doesn't have to be exact, and you could just fold it as opposed to, but this is going to become a hinge. All right, so got that done. Now, I'm going to grab, this is one of the cutoffs from one of the file folders that I used in making the cover, and I am just going to lay that down even. Let me see if, okay, doesn't matter. Even with the top and placed wherever suits me. And what did I do with my pencil? There it is. Take my pencil. Oh, or not. And trace around it. Then I'm going to cut it out. All right, well, you can certainly do a better job than I did, but you get the idea. So now I'm going to, it's right at about 1/2 inch. So now what I'm going to do is pull my cutter out again, and I'm going to take off 1/2 inch from the front. Ooh, I did a really bad job on that. Let's see if we can fix this up a little bit. All right, that's a little better at least. Okay, then, where's my corner rounders? I'm just gonna round the corners a little bit. All right. So now sorry, I'm looking at another one I'd done just to be sure I know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to cut a hair shade off my hinge because I don't want any of it peeking out, and I'm going to miter the corners just a little bit. Just to prevent anything from being seen that I don't want seen. Okay, now I got to think about how this is going to go. Okay. So, I've got my tab up here. I'm going to put the folded edge of the hinge against the folded edge of the file folder. And I'm going to glue that down. And I always like for my hinge to, I want it pretty even, but I want to be sure that the file folder will be able to open. So I would rather have my hinge sticking out just a tiny bit from the edge of the file folder than be a tiny bit lower than the edge of the file folder. All right. Now, let's see. I will be closing the folder, the stitching, the sides of the folder, and it will become a pocket, but I'm not ready to do that yet. First, what I want to do is I want to add some things to it, and one of the things I'm going to add is this little coin envelope. So I'm going to glue it down. Okay. And then I'm going to make beneath that, I'm going to make a double pocket. So I'm beginning slowly to pull some of Dear Julie Julie's digital images in. And then I'm also just using some of my background paper cutoffs. And I'm going to use my 1-inch hole punch and just put little thumb holes in these. Grab my ink again. I tried to cut some of these papers and ink around them ahead of time. Let me give you some measurements. My coin envelope is 3.5 to the flap fold by a little over 2.25. And then my bottom pocket is 3 3/8 by 4 7/8. And my top little pocket is 2 5/8 by 4 1/8. And those measurements don't really matter, just whatever looks good to you. All right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the top one on first. And I'm just gluing on 3 sides. And I'm just using a small amount of glue because I will be taking these in just a moment and sewing around them. So if you're not sewing, you might want to be sure they're attached a little more securely. Basically, I just need them held in place while I sew around them. And now I'm going to take it and put glue on the 3 sides of my larger pocket. And put that right there. Okay, so already we're starting to get, now obviously I'm not going to put any ephemera in them just yet. I'm just trying to construct, and then after I've got everything constructed, I'll go back and actually add ephemera to them. Okay, now, like I said, this will eventually be closed so that it will become a pocket. So I'm going to flip over to this side now. Oh, I put that hinge on there badly because I've got that right there. I may need to, I end up seeing staples there. I did that exactly the opposite way I meant to do it. But that's okay. We will deal with it. All right, so now I've got an envelope. And pick anything that will work for your size. The one I'm using, it looks like, is 4 7/8 by 7. So, that will go there. But I don't want to put it down yet. I've kind of gone back and forth about how I wanted to do this. So what I'm going to do is I've got another little piece of background paper and another little Dear Julie Julie image. And the first thing I'm going to do is normally when I do this part, I normally use magnets, but I'm not going to do that this time because I know a lot of people don't have and/or use really magnets when they're making their journals, and that's fine. But because of that, I wanted to make this, I'm kind of rethinking some of the way I'm doing some of the things so that I can do it without magnets. All right, so now what I want is a little tuck spot or a spot. This is going to be attached to the flap. So what I want is a little spot that this can tuck into. And I could just put something over the top. Or what I think I will do is, and this is going to be a little more complicated, but got a little scrap piece of this, so I think I will cut it down to 1 inch wide. Yeah, we'll go 2.5. Okay. Then I'm going to mark the back of this, and this is where some of the file folder edge had been glued down, so I want to be sure that's on the back. So I'm going to mark at 1/2 inch, so right down the center. And I'm going to draw that right down the center. And then, I am so sorry. If I'm getting out of camera frame, I apologize. Just yell at me and I'll try to move back up. Okay, so I've got 2.5 inches, so I'm going to come over I'm just going to come over 3/16 of an inch and make a little tick mark. And I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3/16 of an inch, make a little tick mark. And I'm going to grab my crocodile, and I'm going to use the 1/8 hole punch, and as best I can, just try to punch right at my cross marks. All right. That might be a little close to the edge, but we'll make it work. All right, now I'm gonna grab, let's see. I always have to stop and think about how to do this. All right. Before I get ahead of myself, I'm going to go ahead and round these little corners. I so apologize. This one is, I thought I had everything worked out about exactly how I was going to do it. But there's always got to be something that I end up rethinking. All right. So, let's take a pencil. No, before I take a pencil, I'm going to go ahead and glue down my little flap closure. That way it's set, and I can't deviate and then mess stuff up. All right. So now I'm going to mark on my envelope where the bottom of that hits, just so I've got it as a reference. Let me go ahead and finish gluing this now. I'm going to line this up. I don't know what good marking it with a pencil did, because now I'm going to cover it up. And I didn't mark it quite long enough. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try as best I can to line this up so that my holes are at about the bottom of my tag. So glue that down. Now I'm going to grab, what am I going to grab? Okay, that ought to work perfectly. I just grabbed this piece of scrap chipboard off of a soda can box. And I'm going to put that down in my envelope. And I'm going to grab my metal ruler and my X-Acto knife. All right. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the bottom of my holes that I punched. And draw across. The only thing I don't have punched out is the holes on the envelope, but we'll figure that out in just a second. So be sure that's cut through. It is. And now I'm going to line it up with the top. It might be easier for me if I do it this way. And cut that. And basically all I'm doing is I'm making an opening for this little closure to slide into, just to hold it. And the pop can was just to help me to keep from slicing through the envelope. That little envelope flap will now tuck down in there to help keep the envelope closed. Man, I again apologize. Really bodgy tutorial today. All right, now that I've made that very simple thing so excruciatingly difficult, this envelope will go right on the back of this folder. The only thing you want to watch is to be sure you don't get it right against your hinge binding. So, and I like to leave another little tuck spot behind the envelope. Right, left, and bottom, I'm going to put glue around the right, left, and bottom of the envelope. That way the top, the flap side, can be left open as an extra pocket. And I'm going to scoot it up toward the tab end of the folder, just to be sure that I'm not too close to the hinge. Nope. Don't pull it up before the glue's set. All right, now real quick, I am going to, what I'm going to do before I seal this up, I'm going to stitch around here. And I may go ahead and stitch this little flap as well, like I had originally intended. And I'm going to stitch around this, and I'm going to stitch around the outside of this and this. Again, absolutely not necessary. It's just my preference. Okay, so I got all my stitching done, and let me show you what I ended up doing. First of all, let me flip over to the envelope side. When I made this slit for the closing tab to go into, as you know, I was having a lot of trouble doing something very simple, and I actually ended up needing to extend my little tab a little bit because I put it just a hair shade lower than it should have been. So now it tucks in there and my envelope closes. So before I closed the overall file folder to make the pocket, I stitched around that. Basically, I could pull this open still, so I stitched around that, left the top open for a pocket there. Then I came over here and I stitched around the 3 sides of this. I did not stitch the top because I want this flap to work, even though I could have left this open as a pocket, but I didn't. And then I stitched around this outer pocket, and I went ahead and stitched around this. Then I closed the folder and did a straight stitch around the 3 sides to create the pocket. So all the back side of my stitching is on the inside of this pocket, so it's not seen. But for right here where I went ahead and stitched around that, you do see the back side right there. But that's no big deal. Can't be helped. And no matter how I did it, you'd be able to see around that. So, all right. So now we've got our hinged file folder. So, I'm going to grab our folio. And I'm going to move some of these ribbons out of my way. And I've got my background paper. Which way do I want it to go? We'll go like this. And I'm going to, before I put my background paper down, I'm going to put my folder with the hinge right up to the left side. And I'm going to get it situated how I want it, top to bottom. Trying to leave roughly equal amount of space, but I'm not overly concerned. I'm more concerned about having it snugged up. So I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to go ahead and glue the back side of this hinge. So that it's on there and does not want to move. Then I'm going to open that back up just to be sure if I have any glue seepage, it doesn't glue this flat down. Oh, the other thing was right here on the hinge, I had that staples, the word staples right there. And it ended up not showing at all, so I don't need to do anything to compensate for my error there. All right, so now that I've got my hinge on, I'm ready to glue down this backing paper. And I've got to watch carefully here where when I inked everything. This is the one advantage to inking those crevices, is it or those fold lines is it does make it easier to see. And I did not do that here. I'm going to do that a little bit real quickly just so I know where my edge is. That's better. And again, since my backing paper is cut to leave 1/8 of an inch all around, I'm going to, best I can, get that centered in. But before I do that, I actually have to put glue all around it. And when I do this, I don't want a lot of glue seepage. I try to get my edges well. The top and the bottom I'm not overly concerned about because, like I said, I'll be going stitching around it eventually. My right and my left I want well, but I don't want a lot of glue seepage, so I would rather go back in and have to glue a little edge down if need be than to have a lot of glue seepage. Of course, with art glitter glue, if you don't work quickly enough, you don't have to worry about it because your glue is going to be dry. All right. So get that lined up as best I can. And come in, grab my spreader card. See, I got a tiny bit of seepage, but not bad. And I don't mind a tiny bit if I can just catch it and get it cleaned up. But I always try to go side to side and top to bottom to get as much out to the edges as possible. All right, so that is now our base for panel 2. So we got panel 2 in, and obviously we'll be doing more decorating and everything here, but the background page, after having this in, the background page was ready to go in. So that part is done for now. I just didn't want, the only other option, and you could do it this way, would be to have the hinge on the top of the page. That's not the way I prefer it, but it could be done that way. All right, so that is panel 2. So tomorrow, or in the next video, and I'm trying to do them one a day, but in part, what will it be, 4, we will be doing panel 3. And hopefully, it goes a little more smoothly than panel 1. Panel 1 is not nearly as difficult as I made it look. Trust me. And we'll be doing some more of these slit things, and hopefully the next time we do it, I will be a little more on my A game so that I can show you that it's really not nearly as difficult as I'm making it look. So until then, everyone, please be safe, stay healthy, happy crafting, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.